something.
Yeah, so technically Summer Scare starts on May 20-something. However, we are going to start for Syosset Public Library. We're going to start early this evening. And hey, welcome. People are on their way in. Awesome.
Yay.
So we know that the CDC has said that everybody can go out and party, but those of you who are here, thank you for joining us. This is going to be an awesome, fun evening. And yeah, Goblin was awesome. And I can't wait to talk about it. So
thank you.
just so let's see, just to go over a few housekeeping rules because they are super important.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a fun, friendly event. Any semblance of abusive language, hate speech, racism will have you booted from the meeting, which is definitely not why we're here. We are here to talk about some really awesome, scary books with Josh Malerman. And yeah, so welcome virtually to Syosset Public Library's first Summer Scares event. Summer Scares being like the brainchild of Becky Spratford from RA for All, and also
Horror Writers Association.
Horror Writers Association, and a bunch of other people. Welcome to Josh Malerman, the author of Bird Box, A House at the Bottom of a Lake, and now Goblin. So how this is going to work is you are in webinar mode. If you have any questions or comments for Josh, you can add them into the chat and the Q&A, and Stacy and myself will direct them to him. And we do encourage audience participation and questions. Yes. All right. So without any further ado, unless Stacy, you wanted to say something.
I was going to say, if you don't, maybe you're shy and you don't want to use the chat, you can be anonymous on Q&A.
Yes.
It may seem like we're scary because of our names and our backgrounds and we like horror, but we're not.
Yeah, so we're actually
like Scout's honor.
Yes, for sure. All right. Okay, so I am going to put the spotlight on Josh to talk about Goblin. So tell us about this book.
So Goblin is the name of a city that, that's what the book is named after, the city. I think sometimes if you just saw a book on the horror shelf that said Goblin, you would imagine a little creature running through a house or something, but no, Goblin is the name of the city. And the book Goblin is one night in the city of Goblin, and it follows 6 gobliners whose each individual obsessions are coming to a head on this one night in Goblin. And Goblin's a weird place for numerous reasons, one of which is that it almost never stops raining. The people are buried standing up. There's almost a Stockholm syndrome to Gobliners, where you get the sense that they're all they're certainly all a bit haunted by the town, but it seems like deeper, it's almost like in their bones or something. And for some to ruination, yet you really can't imagine any of them living anywhere else. And you actually kind of wonder if they even would want to live somewhere else, despite the underbelly, the undertone actually of this city. So a bit of a Stockholm syndrome for Gobliners, but I feel like that's something we can all sort of relate to in our own towns, or at least like, it's like, this place is crazy, but I don't want to live anywhere else, right? And that's definitely a Gobliner's attitude.
Yeah. It was, so this is a series of novellas in one book. How did you decide, like, how was it, like, putting that together and making sure the stories interweave?
Well, for me, it kind of felt like once I had the city itself, right? And I had a sense of the city, and it's almost like embarrassing to admit this, but originally I was calling it Rolling Hills. I mean, what? And come on, we're talking like day one of rough draft, but it was like Rolling Hills, the scariest city in the world. And then I was like, wait a minute, hold on, this This doesn't even sound like a suburb. This is like a subdivision. This is like a gated street, rolling hills. So, I was talking to a girl, and I don't remember exactly how, but the word goblin came up naturally in conversation, and I was like, "That's it. That's the name of the city, Goblin." And she's like, "What?" Once I had, and it sounds a bit superficial, but once I had a sense of the city and the city's name, I understood that I had the main character of the book, and that I could tell numerous stories that took place here, and all of them would be illuminating the main character of the book, which is the city itself. So in terms of like keeping track and all that, I had sort of a master list of 10 novellas that I wanted to write, and I made it 6 deep.
Yeah, I was really into it. And the whole, buried standing up thing was ridiculously creepy. And I had to go and look and be like, is that a thing that actually happens? Where did
not
you,
in the US?
Yeah, well, where did you come up with that?
I came up with it just because of Roman Emperor's moment in the cemetery, where I was like, "Oh my God, I want the lids of these coffins to flip up, and I want everyone just to shoot up into the sky, And I was like, "Well, hold on, how can I do this?" And I was like, "Well, if they're standing up, man, this is good." And then it was like, "Ooh, people in Goblin are buried standing up." And then I looked it up online afterwards. There are some places that do that.
Yeah.
Are they really? It's funny that you say that, because sometimes like I'll watch Wired has on their YouTube channel like videos asking experts, and because I like creepy stuff, I watched the one where a mortician and funeral director talks about his job and answers questions. And someone's like, "Why don't you just bury people vertically? You'll save so much space."
Yeah.
And
not
like,
only that,
do that.
but he's like, "Excuse me, arrest this man." No, but I almost would like rather that for myself or something. I don't want to like quite go down that road, but just there's something about like the laying on your back, and this like, oh, this prone position, but standing up. There's something interesting about that. You would have to be sort of like supported, otherwise you'd be like you're like fall forward against like the wood or something. You understand? But yeah.
It's like things like that make really awesome horror, where you have like these things that are just really small but unsettling, and that kind of like you feel like, okay, this could be something that comes from someplace, or it is something that happens, but it's a little fringy. And I loved that. And I think like I was just drawn into the whole story really, really quickly. And like I said, I loved it.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Thank you. So once again, because I see we have a lot of people who've joined us, please, 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 we encourage audience participation as long as we keep it friendly and kind. Please put your chat, your Q&A drop it into the chat of the Q&A, any questions or comments, and we will bring them to Josh. So I guess like, I want to just sort of like talk about, well, first of all, Stacy, I've been talking a lot. What do you want to say?
I was gonna feel like you're very enthusiastic, so I don't want to like, step on it. No, it's really cool. So I feel like I'm like the Debbie Downer, because I'm like, I did not read Goblin, but I plan to, because I did not think, I don't know why I didn't think it was out. I thought it was coming out, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Clearly,
No, you're right though. You're right. It comes out on the 18th, so you're right.
Oh, okay. So like, I'm sort of right. It comes out soon.
Yeah, this is interesting. Because Goblins played like a major role in my publishing history. If it just stop me if I'm talking too much, but it like back when I was just writing books, without a publisher and without an agent, without any of that, when I was in the band traveling, which I think I talked to you guys about this, mentioned this last time or whatever. And at one point, a friend of mine from high school had called me and said, hey, I know someone that represents authors, a lawyer. Send me a book of yours, I'll send it to him. And I had Bird Box in that stack of books that I had written, but I like insanely thought that maybe Goblin would it be a better one to catch someone's attention because it's 6 stories. If you didn't like the first one, maybe you like the second one. If you didn't like, honestly, that's how naive I was rather than sending like a cohesive novel. The lawyer loved it, called me, said he'd like to represent me, sent it to a manager who loved it. And I work with that manager now to this day. So Goblin kind of like, I guess you could argue, like opened the door for me. And then a limited edition of Goblin was published a few years ago through Earthling Publications, only like 1,000 copies. And then recently Del Rey was like, hey, we want to go wide with it. And that's where we are.
That's awesome. For anyone who's currently attending or listening to this / watching this recording, we did have Josh on our podcast, Turn the Page podcast. I was about to mess up the name 100%. I'm winning, but I will link the episode in the chat. This is a great episode.
Yeah, that was fun. I love that. I loved that too.
We have some questions from the audience. Yay, exciting. And yes, like I said, please drop questions, comments, anything, as long as we're keeping it friendly, into the chat. So welcome virtually to Syosset Public Library, those who are just joining us. Let's see, we have a question in the chat that says, I haven't read Goblin yet because I also didn't know if it was out yet or not. Now, I read the ARC of it, so that's why I'm so well acquainted with the story. Stacy, I probably should have told you that was available on NetGalley.
Should have, but you didn't.
Whoops, I'm sorry. So somebody says, I haven't read Goblin yet because I also didn't know if it was out yet or not. I am so intrigued now, and I had no idea that that was the name of the town. I love the twist on expectation. How long has you kind of spoke to this a little bit. How long has the story for Goblin been simmering in your brain, Josh?
Well, it's hard to, this is always a difficult question to answer because Goblin is the second book I wrote. Today, no joke, today I finished number 34. And I do about 2 a year or something. So Goblin was written in 2005. The original 5 novellas. A year later, I added, and Bird Box the rough draft was written in 2004. But no, 2006. It was after Goblin. Sorry. But the point is, it's like when a tree falls in the woods. Like I rewrote Bird Box from scratch years later. I rewrote Goblin like line by line years later and added another novella and I guess you could argue like tie the stories more together and stuff like that. So in a sense, you could argue the idea has been there since 2005, but that it was like really, written in the way that someone would read it now by the time the special edition one came out a few years ago.
We have a really awesome question in the chat because this is a BYOB, which can be anything you want, really. Yes. Excuse me. Someone wants to know, says, yes, I'm in. Josh, you rock. Question.
I was going to say you have to say that.
What is Josh drinking?
I'm having a Jack and Coke, kids. I never leave home without it. Actually, gosh, it really fits into the background for some reason.
It really does, right?
It looks like we're all at a dinner party and there's one woman here with a knife that like is maybe laughing on her way to cutting a cake or drank way too much. But
yeah, everybody's talking about Knives Out too. Well, this is the OG Knives Out.
Yeah, so a whiskey and Coke, but I don't know if I'm allowed to show the whiskey on this thing, but
you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
All right, in that case.
I was like, and because it is a BYOB, you do not need to be drinking an alcoholic beverage, which is me. I'm drinking water.
With what's in it,
but I
though?
decided to be creepy, and it has blood oranges in it, so it's got like a weird pinkish tint to it, and it looks a little, I don't know, it looks like something crazy. You can't see it because there you go.
Is
Looks like
anybody
a
out? Is anybody else questioning whether or not that's not water?
So I'm going to be honest and say I have a dark red blend from Seven Moons hanging out with me, but because I'm on the clock of the Syosset Public Library, and I'm going to wait until I'm off the clock. It's going to hang out here, just whispering.
You're letting it breathe.
Yeah.
That's incredible willpower. I don't think ever in my life I've pulled off what you're doing right now, which is
just having it sit there.
This drink, that's almost like a horror story. That's brilliant, actually. The woman fixes the drink, has to set it aside. She has to wait like 30 minutes, and she's like starting to sweat, and the drink's like starting to melt a little. Drink's starting to talk to her a little bit,
I can't wait until you write that story.
I was gonna say inspiration for your next.
So questions. Somebody
I
says,
like these questions.
Stacey, actually, I'm going to do this comment, and then I'm going to let you take the questions. The comment says, "Wow, vintage Malerman piece. I love how much time has been invested into this idea." Stacey, take it.
Okay, sorry. We got an influx of comments and questions.
Yeah.
Through all of them. We have from Harrison Scott. What book have you read recently that exceeded your expectations? And then same question, but for whiskeys.
I mean, the book side of it, like, Allison makes fun of me, and I swear I'm not trying to be like PC when I say this. I'm like the worst critic in the world or something. Allison's like, you can never be someone's beta reader. I mean, like, surpass my expectations. I kind of expect every book I go into that it's going to just be exciting and thrilling, I will tell you one that I read that was amazing. Ronald Malfi's Come With Me is so good and so well written, and that dude, like from the word go, from the first sentence, first page, not like it gripped me like a thriller. It wasn't like that. It was more like you like slid into the story, and sometimes I personally can get a little what's the right word, like sometimes I can feel like a book is too thrilling sometimes. Honestly, I can feel like some of them hit the ground running, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then there we go, and then this, and I call those bullet thrillers. And I actually feel like Bird Box is a bullet thriller, and I love that. I love the book, and I like a lot of books like that. But where my heart really is with this, like this Malfi book, where yes, it's thrilling, and yes, it's propulsive for sure. But it doesn't have to hit the ground running. It can just extend a hand. It can put an arm around your shoulder. You can slip into the water together, that kind of thing. So Malfi's newest one, Come With Me, is really blew my lid.
We have a question.
We have so many questions.
Yeah, this is awesome.
The same person wanted to know, do you have any whiskeys that exceed your
that is right. Well, I've been to any whiskey drinker, this is going to sound awful, but I mean, I've been loyal to Jack and Coke since I was about 17. And the reason why is our band was on the road once, and the singer of the other band was a big drinker, and he saw me drinking a whiskey, and he came in, he goes, you don't get mean, do you? You don't turn mean, right? And I was like, no, what do you mean do I turn mean? He's like, everyone I know that has whiskey turns mean. And I was like, no, I don't turn mean. And it struck me like I don't turn mean on Jack and Coke. So it's just been sort of my go-to since then. Like, I have a great time. It feels great. I don't get mean. And I've seen people get mean. And so I'm like, whatever it is works. Let's just roll with it. So the answer to that one is no. I've been like with this alone pretty much not alone, but forever.
We have a question in the Q&A from John that says, that's my Jack buddy. Figured he was drinking Jack and Coke. By the way, I can't recommend Goblin enough. I received an ARC prior to the release of the limited edition and have a copy of that limited edition. I absolutely agree. It is nice. So good. Stacey, want to take the next one?
Yes, the next question is from Hans Curtis. Any plans to publish a printed edition of Carpenter's Farm?
Oh man, no, not right now. But I mean, of course, I want that to happen. Like real fast. Carpenter's Farm at the beginning of the lockdown was a book that I serialized about as live as you can get writing a book, as live as I could get, which was I wrote it, checked it, posted it. A chapter, sorry, wrote a chapter, checked it, posted it. And then like 2 days later, you know, another chapter was done, checked it, posted it. So I suppose you could literally write a book live, but that's about as close as I could get. And it got a little intense for me because think about it. People are actually reading it, and people were like Hans Curtis were adding like artwork, and people were adding music. Chris Campbell has a full score for it. This is all on the website. Has a full score for it that is so good, so good. And so there started to be a little bit of pressure of like, holy cow, I'm writing a book live and I have no idea where this goes, you know? And people are reading it as you're posting it every 2 days. And you're like, well, you know, but then you kind of like figured like, because everyone knew how you were doing it, that if you wrote yourself into a corner, like they would forgive you or something. But either way, that never happened. The book was the whole experience was great. And so now it only exists on the website. That's the only place it is. No ebook, nothing. There aren't numbers of views on there, likes, reviews. It's just this book sitting there on the website. So no plans to do a print version, but my God, I like totally want that to happen. Yeah.
Just sort of scrolling up because
We
there's
have a lot of good questions.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good questions coming in. Let's see. What are your thoughts on magic systems used in horror novels?
The hell does that mean? What about
You can, if you want to clarify, you can put it in the chat. We'll go on to the next question. I guess like a mix of fantasy and horror, I guess, because there are some like dark fantasy.
all I know,
Yeah.
all I know is that I love that question, and I'm gonna ask it of other writers.
Do it.
And
Awesome.
And I'm just gonna be like, hey, buddy, what are your thoughts on magic systems used in horror? Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
they clarified.
okay, so it does mean horror and fantasy. Oh yeah, for sure, horror and fantasy. At the beginning of the lockdown again, I don't know if it was because we were all a little edged out, but I was like, you know, I'm gonna read fantasy for a minute because it has obviously the same you know, depth of imagination of horror, but it was a little bit, you know, little without some stuff that might make me even more edgy, right? So I went on a slight little fantasy bender, and my lady Allison, she just read the entire Wheel of Time series, that whole Robert Jordan, and she like there are shelves in the living room just filled with all the fantasy books she's read, and my office is filled with all the horror books I've read. So to me, yeah, though that's an easy marriage to like for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something that Stacy and I both like very much is Lock and Key, and that has like a
I was
magic.
like, what are
Yeah,
you like? We
I
like
mean,
a lot of things.
we do like a lot of things, but Lock and Key, Stacy and I have both read and spoken about, and I picked up the TV series again during lockdown because
Oh, you rewatched it?
no, I kind of stopped watching it because there was too much going on, and then I literally had no place to go because lockdown. So I started watching it again because I was like, I remember thinking that this was good. But yeah, that's actually, you know, that one is almost like a dark fantasy. Like there's a lot of horror in it, but there's, you know, there's like a whole system with the keys and how they work and the lore.
Well, you know who hits that right down the middle is Clive Barker.
Yes.
That's
Oh, yes.
Right down the middle of that
That's true.
question. Like, and talk about imagination unchained. I mean, that guy is like, holy cow. And I started to notice a pattern with him. When you say it's sort of like the world inside a world, right? That kind of thing. Like Weave World is like literally a story inside a carpet. And the opening of Great and Secret Show is a guy starts to discover like this whole communicate. He's in the mail room at a post office or sorting mail, and he starts to like recognize this whole like cross, you know, referencing of all these communications of all these people like speaking all over the country in like this little mail room, you know. And Cold Heart Canyon, there's like this old like Hollywood home, but this one room, the murals are alive in this one room, and it's a whole world in those murals. So it's interesting how he operates because not only does he get horror and fantasy, but he also gives you some like realism and imagination, like it's a regular house in Hollywood, but there's that one room. So that gives him, as a writer, the chance to do both, right? He can have like the real, like, you know, you're just sitting in the living room talking, or you could be in this crazy, fantastical world in the murals in that one room. Yeah, Barker's one of my favorites.
And I want to get back to the questions because they're pouring in now, but just
I know, I love it though.
mentioning Barker in general, like I think of The Thief of Always, which is considered a middle grade or a YA book, but I think it's an all ages book. I mean, it's definitely got that creepy factor. It almost feels like a Twilight Zone episode in a way, but I think, you know, it works so well on just the whole house trope. I loved it. So let's get back to questions because people want to know things. There was one about beta readers, and then Stacy, if you want to take you take that one. Go ahead.
You mentioned beta reading. Can you speak to the writing and publishing process? How many beta readers do you have, and how does the editing process work for you? So like a whole boatload of questions for you.
I've never used a beta reader before, and I've never beta read for anyone else. That makes me sound like I'm some cold dude on an island, but no, it's just like I said before, I don't think I'm the guy that you want to read your book when you're like, I need to feel better about this. I'm going to send this to Josh and see what he says. And then I'm going to probably read it and be like, dude, this is amazing. Like, you know, or I would even be like, you know what? I kind of like how it's all like choppy and uneven. It's almost like this surreal experience. Did you do that on purpose? Like I get excited easily by it. I have such a wide variety of stuff I like that I can't, I don't know. Maybe I should get into that. In terms of, you know, I used to just hand out like the rough drafts and everything on the road and the band. So like that's the closest thing I ever came to like a beta reader, was literally just handing them out to other guys in other bands. But in terms of the writing and publishing, the process, I finished the book today, and there's a few moments in it, like I rewrote it once. And there's a few moments in it that just kind of like, you're like, is that right? You know, I'm going to go check those. And then I'm going to send that to my editor at Del Rey, Trisha, you know, in the next like 4 days or something like that. At that point, every time you send it into your editor, you're kind of like praying for this, talk about magic systems. You're praying for this magical moment where she's going to write you back and be like, it's perfect. It's done, dude. Don't worry. You don't have to do any more. You nailed it on the first try, right? So, and that book is coming out. It's called Spin a Black Yarn, and it's coming out in about this time next year.
We have a question in the Q&A, and I know this person also put it in the chat, and I want to make sure that it's asked. If you were to hang out with any of the characters in Goblin, who would it be and why? And what would you guys do together if you spent the day in Goblin?
Man, that is a tough one, because there's a side of me that wants to hang out with Neil Nash just because he's so insane. And I would love to, like, all right, I guess we're going to get wasted and party, and we're going to blow some stuff up, and I guess we're going to probably break some rules. And that sounds fun. Hanging out with Dirk Rogers sounds like a bad idea. Although at the same time, the guy just needs a night out. He just needed a night out. So I would love to have hung out with Dirk right when he got off the zoo. I would have picked him up, brought him to the bar, been like, listen, man, you're thinking too much. Let's just drink 20 drinks. Let's dance. Let's get crazy. But I think my heart belongs to Walter Camp, no matter how many times I divvy this up. You know, talk about Stockholm Syndrome. Here's the ultimate, you know, haunting and totally overcome by the city of Goblin and by the sort of the dark undertones. Here's a guy that's afraid of being scared to death. And the only thing that really calms his anxiety is discussing Goblin history. So, I mean, this guy, talk about Stockholm Syndrome. This guy has a full love-fear relationship. And I would love to hang out with Walter. And I would love to hang out with Walter in his apartment and just listen to him just talk about the history of Goblin and the history of all the buildings and everything. And then after I hung out with him, then I would go pick up Dirk from the zoo and be like, hey, look, let's go have fun.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, I feel like Walter almost like missed his calling. You know, like I grew up in the town that I work in, and I'm sitting right next to the local history section department in the library, and it's like it's one of those things. It's like you literally cannot get away from it, and you know it's right there. Question in the chat. Are there any publications you aspire to be published in, like the New Yorker, Atlantic, etc.? And the second question, I believe by the same person, is what is Shrink by Josh Malerman? I saw it in the background of a picture you posted. Wow, this person is like Hans, you are like the super fan of this
Look, it's right here. Shrink. Shrink, Hans, is it's a collection of like 1,000 or so like cartoon panels that I made over time. And I wanted to like make at least like one book of it. So I went to like a wedding photo website, and instead of sending 1,000 wedding photos, I sent like 1,000 like cartoons that I drew. And then I got this book back in the mail that the people that work there must be like, what the hell is this? And so this, in a way, this is my wedding album. And as you can see, there's all sorts of drawings inside. This guy removes his face and puts on a new one, for example.
Nice.
And yeah, that's all that. I mean, I'm not gonna say that's all that is. Yeah. No, thanks, Hans, for saying that's fantastic. Yeah, I was thinking about like trying to publish it in some way. There's got to be like some way to put out a little book of like panels, right? I don't know. I'll look into that.
You should, because Hans needs it.
Yeah. So do I. And it would be an awesome thing to have if someone like came over and you're like, here, have this. Go get stoned and read this. Oh, sorry.
Some comments. I did post Josh's website in the chat if you guys want to visit it. And then Alex posted specifically about Carpenter's Farm if you guys wanted to do that. A comment of Jack and Coke was my lifeblood in my glory days. And then we have
same. And I won't let them go.
Brienne says we'll take 2 of Shrink, I'm assuming. We have a question.
Or 2 Jack and Cokes. I mean, it could be or
that or
yeah. By the way, I am on number 2, just for the record.
Woo!
Yep, this one I started snorting the bottle.
It's so funny because it's like, you know, like sometimes when we have BYOBs, people are like, you know, like the authors are like really like, yeah, BYOB, bring it on. And sometimes they're like, am I allowed to show that? And we're just like, listen, we're the ones who are on the clock. You're being, you know, you're
some
here.
Some of them don't even like have a drink, like any.
But that's fine. That's fine. It's not, you know, it's not a requirement, but it is, you know, like we can't. One of the beautiful things about virtual programming is, you know, we can't have cocktail night at the library, but here we can virtually.
You can have cocktails in your home. This all started because of Riley Sager.
Yes, that's true.
Really?
Thank you, Riley. Right. So yes, just to give a little background to those folks who might be new to the virtual programming here, and also, I would say because in the beginning of lockdown, Riley Sager was a guest, and we also found last summer that all of our horror authors got just the best attendance for virtual programming, which sort of led us to check out Summer Scares and decide to do this virtual summer-long festival. But Riley it was like the beginning of April, and he had, I think, like whiskey or something, and he was like, listen, I've been in the house with my husband for the last like 2 months, month and a half, and like I want to just close the door and have my whiskey and talk about my books. And that's when we were kind of like, we could be on to something. Like you don't even need to, you could wear sweatpants, like, but we could also provide a fun night out. We're in.
Yeah. I love Riley Sager. I read I want to read that newest one. What's the very, very new, like I don't know if it's out yet.
It's not out yet, but
I was gonna say, I don't
I'm
think it's out
waiting for
yet.
an ARC of it. It's Survive the Night.
Yeah, Survive the Night. I can't wait for that one. But that one just screams I'm gonna love it. I read Home Before Dark is the last one I read.
That was
nice.
fabulous. There are, first of all, like shout out to Long Island because it's got like kind of a nod to the Amityville house, which is about 20 minutes from here. But man, there are some things in that book that are going to make it very difficult for me to listen to certain songs or maybe like enjoy my cup of coffee without worrying about things happening, which is my code to saying to people, if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't read the book, please read it.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Stacy?
Yeah,
I've been to that house. I used to live in Lake Ronkonkoma.
Living in Suffolk.
Yeah, so also later in the summer, we're going to be doing like a Long Island myths and legends, urban legends panel with some members of the Horror Writers Association. So you might be into that.
Chapter.
New York chapter. And Lake Ronkonkoma has its own lore. But go ahead, Stacy.
We have a question from lovely attendee Nick Beek. I say that because he's a friend of mine. I've recently discovered some YouTubers who are excellent at book reviews. Are you familiar with any, and would you recommend any?
I know Ross Jeffrey is really, really amazing. I'm meeting up with him and others on Saturday. I don't know that many. It's probably something I should get more into, but I understand that I could look at a million other books rather than my own. But in a general sense, I kind of like steer clear of reviews, not just of my own. Not because I'm not for any like mean reason whatsoever, but I think that it's probably healthy for writers to stay away from reviews of their own, right? And that results in kind of not frequenting review sites very often. But I feel like this conversation or that question, is kind of has me thinking like, maybe I need to look into that a little more. But I know Ross Jeffrey is great, and there's other ones too that I really love that I just don't know the name of. There's that one girl that's really funny. I don't know.
That one girl with the
no, but she's like so funny.
I'm trying to think. I don't typically watch them. I have come across them because those panels are really popular at New York Comic Con of like BookTube and talking about that. But there's I wouldn't say a slightly recent trend. I feel like I'm being like really old in saying this, but a lot of people have been using TikTok to like book review and like book promote. I feel like, oh, this book's awesome, and like, you know, as if I don't have a book near me to be like, hey. But it's interesting to see people use that.
Yeah, I need to get on there for sure. I'm seeing other authors doing it and starting to talk about it and stuff. But I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying like I should get on another platform. Like, what the F am I talking about?
Yeah,
come on, dude.
Somebody in the here we go. Somebody in the chat. Do you find yourself trying to break or lean into standard patterns or tropes in horror?
That's a hard one because I feel like when you I like Harry Dresden's dinosaur questions. I really do. This one's hard because I think typically what that would mean is like it's a vampire story done a different way, right? It's a werewolf story done this way or that kind of thing. So the answer to that is no. I don't think of it in those terms. But then again, I've noticed this sort of like pattern where, and this is just something I've just started recognizing in my own stuff. And I feel like you can't really recognize a pattern in your own stuff till you've written a bunch of stuff, right? And which is that there's almost like this sort of like once removed or off frame, right? So Bird Box, the monster is off frame. I wrote a story about a guy that builds a a real house of horrors beneath the playful, phony house of horrors. So we are 1 degree removed. What's it called? Another story about 2 kids that are always playing in the basement, and they overhear an exorcism taking place upstairs in the house. They are 1 floor removed from the ghost story. So this, and I could keep going. There's like 20 of them. And so that answer to your question is kind of yes, is that, here's an exorcism story, but it's overheard. You're not witnessing it. And here's a House of Horrors, at the carnival story, but it's about one guy that took it too seriously, and it takes place actually somewhere else, but it starts there, like this kind of thing. So in a sense, yes, there's an elasticity. I wouldn't say it's intentional. You don't sit down and say, wait a minute, this isn't different enough, It's not quite like that. But I'm drawn to this sort of, okay, here's the regular shot. Now let's aim it over here and tell the story that's happening on the regular shot. I'm definitely drawn to that.
So actually, this is kind of fun. Tessa in the chat wanted to went to Hans, which was your favorite Malerman book so far? And I want to turn that to everybody. If you want to put that in the chat or the Q&A. Mine is A House at the Bottom of a Lake, just because it just kind of blew my mind in so many ways. But there's a lot to choose from. House of the Dead is one of my favorites, and it was the best episode from Creep Show season 1 because it's the kind of story that fascinates the reader from the first second.
Thanks. Thank you, Hans.
And Tessa says on Barry Carroll.
I'm liking the side combos.
Not to be like this guy, but Barry Carroll is also my favorite.
Be that guy if you can be that guy anywhere.
Yeah, whatever. I just felt like there was a real I felt real liberated while working on that one, and it felt like it was more horror vignettes, like more horror theater to me. It was like each chapter the curtains part, and now you have Dwight and Opal, the curtains closed. Now you have Moxie and Smoke, the curtains closed. Now you have Ronaldo and Moxie, and it was fun. It almost felt like I had like these like figurines that I was like playing with on a little theatrical stage, and it was one of the most liberating artistic experiences I've had. So
somebody says Barry Carroll has a special spot in my heart and head canon. I love that, especially because I just found out that my children have a head canon involving Gravity Falls and like the nightmare demon in that Bill Cipher, which they're kind of slightly obsessed with. And I'm not really sure how to feel about that, but my kids are awesome. So I'm going to say that just makes them more awesome and a little bit scary.
Hey, my son, who is 16 months, loves Hannibal. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything evil. Lights up when Mads Mikkelsen came on the screen, because you watched Lock and Key, Jessica. I was like, I gotta watch Hannibal.
Yeah.
And my child, I was like home with the baby, so I was like, you're watching it with me. And then one of my friends had a watch party for Lord of the Rings, and when does my son decide to light up and laugh? When the Uruk-hai come on and are marching, and I was like, this is gonna be fun raising you.
Let me give you a preview, Stacy. We watched the Mitchells versus the Machines, which also I know Alex Hirsch from Gravity Falls had something to do with. But the scene that one of my sons latched onto involves evil Furbies. So good luck with your son, because this is what you're looking forward to. Somebody anonymous wants to know, what resources do you look to for horror inspiration? Hey, wait, I missed the
sorry.
And what has been the most horrifying news? Which I love that question.
Yeah.
Wait, say it again. What was the question?
What resources do you look to for your horror inspiration, and what has been the most horrifying muse?
Oh, most horrifying muse, huh? Well, let me tell you guys a story about this. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's like, it's hard to explain, right? I feel like my mind is open always to these, to everywhere. Cause you could just be, I mean, you could write a horror story about this conversation. You can write one about an interview. You can write one about, open one with me closing the computer and going to talk to Allison about this moment in time. And anywhere from restaurants to daytime to taking a shower to working out, it's just constantly, my mind is just constantly open to, is this a story? Is this a story? Not to, not in a rushed way, just open, but the most horrifying muse might be like, a moment, that kind of like, I think played a bigger role in all this for me than I admit or something, which was when I was, younger, my mom had gone to see like a psychic, right? And she came back with a cassette tape of her session. And in those days, there was, we had big speakers and a cassette deck. Like that's what we listened to in the house. And my mom said to 13-year-old me, don't listen to this, which is, come on, right? So there was a moment, the moment I was, the first time I was alone in the house, I put the tape in and hit it and hit play. And my mom asked this woman, I hear my mom on this tape ask this woman, so she goes, everyone in the house has seen a ghost except for Josh. Why do you think that is? And I'm home alone. And I'm like 13 and I'm like hearing my mom say this like through these big speakers, and like the tape's like spinning and I'm like, oh my, what does that mean? Everyone in the house has seen a ghost. Like, who cares what the answer is? What do you mean by that question, Mom? Right? But then the woman did answer. She goes, because Josh has not seen a ghost because he's not ready to see one, but everyone else in the house is. It more, I can't remember the exact word, but eventually it implied like they were all strong enough and had the fortitude to see one, but not me. It would like rattle me or something, right? Drive me insane, like Bird Box, right, or something.
Right, yeah.
So I ran upstairs because I had heard of like some story on my mom's, or maybe she had seen her grandfather who passed upstairs or something. So I ran up there and I ran into like the master bathroom, and I was like, show yourself. And I felt like something was about to, and I was like, no. And I like ran out of the house. So
nice.
I sometimes while I'm writing and reading and stuff, I think about that moment and I think about listening to my mom ask that question. And I'm like, whatever that feeling was, that's what I'm trying to get out of myself and out of a reader. When my mom asked that lady, or said to that lady, everyone in the house has seen a ghost. At that moment, I was like, oh. And I think that was, in a bizarre way, the most horrific muse for me, because I come back to that one a lot.
There's like a fun conversation going on in the chat. Let's see. Somebody says, I meant to say my favorite book has to be On This, The Day of the Pig. And the response is, that one is so much fun. I was happy to get my hands on a copy of the limited release. And then Tessa, I think there will also be a mass market edition retitled Pearl.
Yeah. Coming out in October.
Ooh,
awesome.
Just in time for Halloween.
Yeah, I just saw the cover art the other day for it.
Yeah, is it cool? Is it awesome?
Oh yeah. I feel great about the whole thing. Yeah, and I see that. I wonder why they changed the title. I really like. I gotta admit, I did that. I gotta admit, I'm not gonna throw the publishers under the bus. That was my idea, and whether it might have been a bad idea. Tessa might be right that I should have kept it, but for some reason I just felt like this is like going out wide. I wanted it to be more of like God, now she's making me feel like I should have left that title. I don't know.
Wow, Tessa, you're totally shaming Josh Malerman.
Oh no,
no, it's fine.
It's okay, but there was something, I don't know what it was. I was like, hey, if we're gonna do it, maybe we could say like, call it like, something else. And I didn't know what else to call it. And the editor was like, what about Pearl? That's the name of the pig in the story, the star of the story. And I was like, yeah, Pearl sounds a little too like, like soft or something. But then I was like, no, maybe that's good. Because it has to also say originally published as on this the day of the pig. So I figured if that's still there, that'll help Pearl. So yeah, so we went with Pearl.
Pearls for swine, somebody says.
Pearls for swine.
I want to scroll back up, and then there's
We have we have more questions aside from this fun combo. I'm like reading it, watching this. I'm like, I'm listening to you of this, and then you're talking about ghosts, and my dog is just like barking at a corner in the room I'm in. So thanks. Thank you. You already terrified my house is haunted, so.
You mentioned vampires. I've seen Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles classified as horror by others. As a full-blown horror writer, do you consider that series in horror, and what are the boundaries of the genre?
Oh, for sure, that's horror. And in fact, where is it? It's like right here. I'm on book 4 of it right now. Where are you, buddy? I just wanted to show you. I mean, like, it's not like someone's like, "You sure you are?" It's right here. Book 4.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
I feel like it absolutely counts, but I understand that question. I get it. You know, what are those boundaries? It's hard. It's like you just know it or something, right? Just like when you know something's a comedy, right? It's like you just know it. This is horror. But you can also like start to stretch. You'll see people say like, you know, this is never called a horror movie or whatever, but it really is or whatever. Maybe it's just like a really grisly murder or something like that, right? Or a true crime or something. But for me, it has more to do. It's more of a mood, more of an atmosphere, more of it's more like if I equate it to music, it's more of like a low note on like the synth, rather than like specific scale that equals horror or something like that.
It's interesting to say that because the person who helps do summer scares every year, Becky Spratford, who does RA for All, she always talks about horror. She's a big horror fan and always tries to promote it because
I love her. Yeah.
Is that like not a lot of people always like, I shouldn't say people always, a lot of people naysay horror and like, oh no, like, and it's not widely, taken out of libraries, but when I watched a webinar panel she was on, and she's like, horror is a feeling. I swear to God, Ripley, if there's a ghost in the house, you better attack it.
Don't listen to that tape, Stacey. The tape of your mom at the psychic.
I know. So I apologize for her barking in the background. But she goes, horror is a feeling more so than the other genres that people read, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
She said that? Wow, that's like almost exact. I can't believe that. That's interesting. Yeah, that makes me feel like because right after I answered, I was like, "Is that right?" And then you said that, and I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." It really is. It's just the kind of thing you just know it. You're just like, "That's horror," and like it, or it counts. It makes it into the genre. But Anne Rice for sure, to me, squarely makes it.
John wants to give a shout out to Inspection as a book as well, and says he thinks it's underrated and not as spoken about. And then Stacey, I'll let you take the Q&A. I'll get this one in the chat, and then you can take the Q&A. Josh is one of I guess my favorite new authors, along with Anya Allburn. Josh wrote the introduction for Allburn's new novella, Dark Across the Bay.
No. Hans' new novel. It's a novel.
Ooh.
Yeah. Right. It's gotta be a novel. No, it's 200. I think it's 200 pages at least or something. Anyway, whatever. Either way, man, it is. Oh, he read it. It's great. Yeah, she's good, and she can get like dark, Anya Allborn can get like dark. Like there's moments sometimes as a horror author where there's a choice to make, like, am I gonna go that road with this, or like what kind of story am I writing here, and you don't shy away from maybe violence or this just because of a threshold or something. Maybe that would take away from the mood that you're doing or something, right? But Anya Allborn can get dark. Like she can go for it. Yeah.
I'm like Tess. I would also need to check her out. We have a question from earlier of how do you manage to write while balancing both your responsibilities to yourself, your friends, and your family while still churning out content for your fans?
Read that one again.
I have to scroll past. How do you manage to write while balancing your responsibilities to yourself, your friends, your family, while still churning out content for your fans? So work-life balance.
See, like this is where the horror story opens. That's question one, and then it's just a downward spiral from there. The man realized he doesn't balance between, he hasn't been paying attention to himself, his friends, or his family at all. First of all, well, we don't have any kids, Allison and I, so start there. But in terms of like, I see my brother and his kids regularly. My mom is talking about coming over in a few days. We go up to see Allison's family often. I think that it's just like when I don't know, I don't have a day job other than writing. So there's that too, right? No kids, no day job means there's enough time in the day to write and address or just be a part of the things that you're talking about. But I think it also has to do with, you just find a groove after a while when you write this much and you write this many books, and it's almost like the equivalent would be like if you're like a runner, right? And you're like, you run a mile every day, you run 2 miles, and then one day, or you take this day off, but then you're running 5 the next. It really is the same kind of thing. And most runners and runners for life, it's not like they're gonna just stop doing it for a year, right? Unless they got injured or something. So for me, it's similar. There's like writing shape. And when you're in writing shape, you can sit down and you get it done and you're excited and you're in the zone. It's almost like meditating. And when it comes to an end, you leave the office and you try your hardest not to tell your fiance how brilliant it was all day for the rest of the day.
Stacy, is your dog barking in the background?
She is, and then something just made a loud sound, so I'm like quietly freaking out.
Somebody wants to know we are going to wrap up soon. But somebody wants to know what's the last thing that's truly scared you. Could be a book, a movie, or an event. I really want to know this too.
I like it. Or an event! Exclamation.
Okay, the last thing that like really scared me. So Allison likes to prank me and she likes to scare me, and she's good at it. And this one. So the desk I'm sitting at right now, there's a pretty big space underneath. It's not like whatever. There's enough room for someone to be hiding down there. Let's say that. And so I came in the office, and I sat down to like work and whatever. And I'm like sitting here, and then a hand starts to fingers start to kind of come up or curl around like the desk and show. And I leapt out of my chair. I just didn't. It was the middle of the day. I did not think for a second that Allison was hiding under the freaking desk. And it got me to the marrow. Yeah. So Allison pranks me, and she's very good at it. Let me tell you another one real fast. We had a penguin suit. We do have a penguin suit, but we had it on this mannequin that sat on our front porch forever. And I went and played in a pool tournament, which I won, by the way. And I came back and I hop up the front steps and I look over and the fucking penguin stood up. I mean, that thing was sitting there for a year, and the penguin stood up and I was like, whoa. And then a friend of ours was videoing it, videoed Allison scaring the living daylights out of me.
I love that. I agree. It's also terrifying because Tessa says that in the Ripley. Tessa says that in the chat. One of the chat members says, "I hope it's Penguin from Batman." But as much as I love horror, I hate haunted houses because I cannot stand the thought of someone jumping out at me. So that story of her getting you,
No, I know. I'm the same way. Everyone's like, "Hey, man, you want to go to the haunted corn maze? You're the horror guy." I'm like, "Oh, well, they're like, "Hey, there's a 6th floor haunted house. It's supposed to be the scariest one in the world. People have lost their minds. Let's go." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I get freaked out and all that stuff too, for sure." There's a couple real fast. There's a couple in Niagara Falls that are scary. And Allison and I went to one called Dracula's Castle in Niagara Falls. And we walk in and there's a family getting tickets, right? And there's levels. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced, you are a horror guy. So the family got their tickets and then they're walked through this one door. So then we walk up, we get our tickets for advanced, right? How do we not, right? And the guy behind just pulls the curtain back from like the ticket booth. He's like, you guys go this way. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, but the family went that way. He's like, yeah, but you got advanced. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. All right, here we go. So Allison and I go up these stairs, these carpeted stairs. Like we get up there and it's pretty much like, think about how genius this is. It's pretty much like just dark, like darkness. And there's one actor up there that does like in this unbelievable like demonic sort of growling, like following us through the darkness. That was it. There weren't people.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know.
That
Yeah.
would terrify me, but I love that.
I was like, at one point I was like, this is like actually brilliant, you know? But like after a while, you're in the dark with someone making enough of this noise. Where after a while, it's not funny. It's not like, you know, you're like, this guy's still making this noise. We're still in the dark. What is going? Like, we got to get out of here, you know?
That's great.
I know. And at one point, Allison and I started like running, or I'm sorry, I did. Like I started like running, and the guy, I swear to God, the guy goes, "No, you guys are fine. It's okay."
That
would be me
me
though. I'd be running too.
That reminds me, of like this, what was it? There's a creepypasta called No End House, where it's supposed to be like the scariest haunted house, and if you get to the end, you win money, and there's a lot of more stuff, a lot of other stuff going on there. But there is like almost like throughout like certain rooms, there's like almost like a growl or a humming sound, and just like for some reason, no matter how creepy the rooms get in the story, that is the thing that sticks with me.
Exactly right. If we had gone into a room and it was like the mad scientist room, which that sounds fun, but it wouldn't have been scary. And even if something jumped out at us, that would have been scary. But this was like unnerving. This was like, we are just walking through dark hallways. Mostly there were a few lit up kind of like spots, kind of, but like mostly like dark hallways with this one dude in there just making the best like freaking low end demon voice you've ever heard. And I was like, man, this is the real deal. This is advanced.
Yeah, I mean, my husband will not go into those haunted houses with me because I just sort of like, I kind of like don't react because I've gotten to the point where like I kind of just like say to myself, you know, I think like I almost like psych myself down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in and somebody's going to jump out at me and somebody's going to touch me and somebody's going to do this and somebody's going to do that. And you know, like he'll like shake his head at me and he's like, come on, like, you know, but I guess like for myself as a child who was scared of everything, it's almost like sort of like taking control of what always scared me. But I think I think that
I know.
It would be like a drill, you know?
I know. It was like, again, Dracula's castle, Niagara Falls, obviously the Canadian side is the American side. I don't even know if
there's nothing going on there. Yeah.
And it's got an awesome like facade, like amazing, like Dracula and Frankenstein. Those are like right next to each other. And it's bizarre because it said advanced, right? So you would think that means more jump scares, more this.
Yeah.
But no, it actually was true to its word. It was advanced. It was more like refined.
Yeah, John says, I think jump scares are the dollar store ramen of horror. It's cheap.
Yes, but it scares me at any time.
Yeah, no, me too, man. I know.
Like I will deal with a demon growling behind me the whole time. I'll be like, cool, okay, we're friends now, got it.
Yeah, no thanks.
But no, I don't know. Jumping out, I feel like I'd get violent. That's why I don't go.
Wow, well, that's it. Yeah, I think that I don't know, man. Now you have to go try this one.
Clearly, I have to go do the advance and have a demon growling at me.
But I can't verify. You know, it's got to be the same demon guy. You know, we walked out of there, and I'm like, this guy's got to be in the movies. And Allison's like, oh my God.
There's one more question in the Q&A that I want to we'll quickly put out there. Josh, this is amazing. I want to let all of our guests know that Syosset Public Library will be hosting Summer Scares programming throughout the entire summer virtually,
Yes.
which means that that means you can go no matter what you're wearing. If you want to be out with people now that you were allowed to do that, you can take us on your phone and
Yeah,
you
have a
can
watch
ignore
party.
you can
Socially
ignore your
distant.
friends or watch it with your friends while you're dining, or just enjoy. You can check us out. All of Syosset Library social media will be advertising what we have coming up through the summer. You can go to our website, our digital calendar, and join us for everything because it's going to be super fun and scary. And tomorrow we're hosting for a virtual lunch.
Sarah Beth Durst.
Who wrote The Bone Maker, which has a really interesting look on necromancy. So I think you'll all like it. Stacy, want to take this last question?
Okay. Do you have a goal or vision for a capstone work for your career, or is that capstone behind you?
What is
I feel like
capstone?
that's a very intense question.
Yeah,
No,
right?
no, I love that question. But what does capstone mean? Like a peak moment kind of thing? Like, is that what you
Yeah.
think
Guessing that?
capstone means? Like, are you kidding? I love that question. Hold on 1 second. Let me think. God, that's a good freaking question, man. Because like, what are you chasing, right? It's like that kind of question, or are you not? But you know, because I've always kind of seen it as one of the beauties of being one of the beauties of being prolific is that it disperses we probably talked about this last time we saw each other. Like, if you only wrote one book, the spotlight's full on it. This is you. This is what you've expressed. This is you as a writer, not as a person, but as a writer. But being prolific disperses that spotlight, right? And with each one, the light is a little less bright on each. And that's not saying you don't want the light to be on each. But what happens is at the end, it's the body of work that becomes the work of art rather than any of the individual pieces. But in order for that body of work to be like super interesting to, to the rest of the world, you need a few of those capstones. So I don't know. I have a vague, I love that question and I love that word. I have a vague like sense of like that I'll know if this is a capstone or if that is, if this is a peak moment, if this is a, that kind of thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean one's better than the other. Like Bird Box isn't necessarily better than I'm Barry Carroll. It just like resonated in a way, and there was a movie made and all these things. So somebody would say that's a peak moment. And yes, it is, but that doesn't mean that's the peak moment. Oh my God, of course not. So man, so yeah, it's the kind to answer that question, because I really like talking about these kind of things. To answer that question, I think it's the kind of thing that I have a sense that I haven't achieved what you're asking yet, or I have, but I'll know exactly when that moment happens.
Thanks so much to Josh Malerman, or Jaws Malerman, as your title says. This is Jessica in Pieces from Syosset Public Library.
And Scary Stacy from Science Public Library. Sorry, I had a freak out moment that she was about to jump off the chair. And she's a puppy, as you could all see.
Oh, very cute. Awesome.
And if anyone can correctly guess where her name comes from, her name is Ripley. So if you could guess what movie, I just spoiled it, but yeah. That's why I love horror.
You have two dogs? There's another one behind you.
Correct.
Alien too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's a girl dog, and I was like, I need like a badass female name, and I was like, who's like more badass than Ellen Ripley?
And I have my very timid cat whose name is Crowley at the foot of my bed, who is not living up to his name at all. His sister was supposed to be a Xerophel, but my kids couldn't say that, so we call her Juno or Tomatoes. But she's got the demon personality, and he's the fussy one. So yeah. So join us for more programming throughout the summer. Josh, thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Goblin is out, will be out soon. Check your local
next week.
libraries. Go to bookshop.org if you would like to purchase it. I know there's a few people on here who have already got that going for them. And keep writing awesome books, Josh, and come back and hang out with us.
I would love to. Thank you so much. That was awesome. That was great.
So much
This was great. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody. That was awesome.